What's going on YouTube? Austin Zay back here, coming back to you with another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the real estate market, the housing bubble that we're in, and whether or not we're going to see the housing bubble at some point just completely pop in 2021. Obviously, we just passed another stimulus bill for $1.9 trillion. We have 2.7 million Americans that are behind on their mortgage payments. We have 10 million people unemployed, and supplies at an all-time low in the housing market, and demand is at an all-time high with interest rates lower than we've ever seen before. Let's go ahead without further ado and let's just jump right into the video. So here's the breakdown of the stimulus plan. I want to talk about this really quick because, you know, a lot of people are looking at the stimulus. Obviously, we're about to all get $1,400 stimulus checks, okay? The requirements have changed up a little bit, but I want to know, and I really want to dive in to, you know, a few articles here, and I really want to look at, you know, is the stimulus that they continue to pass over and over again actually helping the housing market, or is it hurting the housing market? So here's a breakdown of the overall stimulus plan. As we can see, obviously, we have $105 billion going to the healthcare industry, $360 billion for what they call government, okay? Not 100% sure what that means. Only $123 billion is going to the COVID-19 related stuff, okay? $176 billion for education. Other is about $194 billion. Now, there's about $10 billion that is going to a new fund as it actually pertains to the housing market, which we're going to talk about here in just a minute, so definitely stay tuned. And I believe that that is in what they categorize as this other category right here, okay? We've got the largest portion of the $1.9 trillion going to everybody getting their $1,400 check, okay? And again, $75,000 a year or less, you get the $1,400 if you're single, and if you are married, it is $150,000 or less that you have to make a year, okay? So $410 billion is getting allocated to that in particular. Again, $143 billion to expand tax credits, $56 billion for transportation, so on and so forth, okay? So according to the Wall Street Journal here, the current Senate legislation includes the $1,400 checks, obviously, we just talked about, $75,000 a year or $150,000, and then phasing out from there. So the largest individual section totaling, again, like we just said, $410 billion, okay? Basically, they're not really saying anything here as it pertains to anything different, okay? So let's just go ahead and keep scrolling down here. Roughly 7% of the stimulus funding will be directed toward COVID-19 treatment. That's kind of interesting here. According, again, to the Wall Street Journal, obviously that has to do with testing, contact tracing, and, you know, so on and so forth, okay? So we've also got, let's see here, I'm just gonna keep scrolling down. We have this little $10 billion in infrastructure. I wanna see how they actually categorize this, okay? As it pertains to the housing market, and we might not actually find that on this article. So let's just jump to a different article real quick. Okay, jumped over to a different article here, and this is what I was talking about. This is what they're calling the Homeowner Assistance Fund, okay? Obviously, we all know that when we keep injecting money into the economy the way that we're doing it, you know, quite a few different things actually end up happening, right? Number one, you obviously have a massive amount of inflation, and we've seen the inflation numbers. I'm going to show you all of this on the screen, obviously, but number two, the asset classes are just going to continue to go up. Real estate being one of them, right? Especially when you have interest rates are at an all-time low, okay? Supplies also at an all-time low, which makes demand at an all-time high, and on top of that, the value of the dollar is going down, so people want to go and they want to invest into things like real estate, Bitcoin, the stock market, and so on and so forth, okay? But what exactly is the stimulus aside from just inflating the dollar and forcing people to go buy real estate? You know, what is the stimulus package actually doing as it pertains to real estate? So supposedly they're saying that this bill this fund in particular is going to help millions of families keep their home. Again, we've talked about it, but we have 2.7 million people that are in forbearance right now, okay? People that if the moratoriums didn't exist, if we didn't have the eviction moratorium and the foreclosure moratorium, you know, these people would have already been been out on the street, right? They'd have already been evicted and they'd have already been foreclosed on, but they're not getting foreclosed on. Foreclosure numbers are at an all-time low. And again, I'll show you all this on the screen, okay? So aside from that, we've got this new fund here, okay? So what it would do, essentially what they're saying, is it would provide a critical safety net for millions of families who are behind on their mortgages or already in foreclosure as a result of the pandemic, okay? This group also supports inclusion of housing counseling funding in the package, okay? So they're actually apparently do some housing counseling. I'm not exactly sure what that is going to look like, but now this bill would also provide crucial assistance that homeowners desperately need to hold on to their homes, okay? So of the $10 billion, we're gonna be providing assistance apparently to people that need it the most, okay? So basically they're saying here, a year later, you know, we've gotta actually do something about the housing market, okay? We've got to do something about, you know, actually helping the people that need it as opposed to just putting the moratoriums in place, essentially. So this is going to provide that critical relief for Americans that are facing foreclosure as a consequence of the overall crisis, okay? Obviously, I think we can all agree that if you take people's jobs away, close down their business, don't allow them to work, and they miss their mortgage payment as a result of all of that, then you probably have to do something about that, and a $1,400 stimulus check probably isn't going to allow somebody to make their payment, okay? Again, we're just focused on the people that need it the most. At least that is what they're focused on, okay? So, supposedly, right? So I'm kind of skipping through the article a little bit, trying to save you the heartache of having to go and read all of this yourself, but what they're saying down here towards the bottom of this article is that this fund would basically allow for direct payments, okay? So they're talking about actual direct payments similar to like a stimulus check, but as it pertains to homeowners in distress, and it would actually help them with their mortgage payments, their property taxes, their property insurance, utilities, and other housing-related costs. So it'll be really interesting to see how this all plays out and how they're able to actually divvy up the money that they allocated to the actual fund itself, okay? So this is extremely interesting, and I would love to see how this all plays out in real time. Because as it sits right now, we're essentially just printing more money, and then we extend the moratoriums, and then we print more money, and we extend the moratoriums, and then we print more money, we extend the moratoriums, right? And the problem with that is supply just keeps getting lower, demand keeps getting higher because they're forcing interest rates to stay low, in a nutshell, right? New home builders aren't building at the rates that they need to build for people to migrate properly, and overall, we're not really doing anything about the people that are missing all of their payments. I mean, what is going to happen? You know, are we going to experience a big wave of foreclosures? You know, is that ever going to happen? Or are we just going to do loan modifications and take all of their missed payments, add it to the end of the mortgage, and just kind of say, okay, you know, there we have it, right? So I think that this will be really important, having a fund that is dedicated to helping the people that need it the most as it pertains to people that are missing their payment, okay? So let's just go ahead and pull up one more article here. Definitely stay to the very end. I want to pull up just one last article and take a look at it real quick. So they're supposedly working on cooling down the demand of the housing market a little bit, hopefully increasing supply a little bit by interest rates going up a little bit. Obviously, according to CNN, basically we had all-time interest rates of 2.67% at the end of 2020. Now, according to Freddie Mac, basically the 30-year fixed mortgage average is now up to 3.05%, and you know, partially due to the fact that the 10-year Treasury has also been going up, and typically the 30-year fixed mortgage interest rate will kind of match and mirror what the 10-year Treasury actually does, and so they kind of tend to match and mirror each other, and we've seen the 10-year go up a little bit, and now we're seeing the 30-year fixed interest rate also go up a little bit. Now, in theory, what that'll do, and it hasn't yet, okay, so what they're saying here basically, according to CNN, is that, you know, if demand can kind of cool off a little bit, then that'll allow kind of more of a neutral market to come into play here, where you don't have supply at an all-time low and demand at an all-time high, but instead, you know, we have a little bit more of a healthy supply and a healthy demand. So not actually a market crash per se would happen as a result of just one little variable kind of changing, but instead more of just kind of a little bit of a taper, right, where the prices would kind of taper out a little bit, because in a lot of areas, Arizona, Idaho, Florida, a lot of areas throughout the country have seen such massive appreciation that there's just no possible way that it can continue to go at the rate that it's going. So what they're essentially kind of saying here is that their goal is, again, to cool the housing market off but avoid a market collapse, okay? And I think that at the end of the day, that's something that we all want to avoid, is an entire housing bubble, that of 2005, 6, 7, and 8, but instead, kind of taper off a little bit, get demand to cool off a little bit, supply to come back a little bit, get some healthy interest rates that we can kind of all get behind and support. Maybe not all-time lows, but also not all-time highs, somewhere right in the middle, hopefully, ideally, and overall, we can kind of begin to rebuild, or I shouldn't even say rebuild, but kind of just begin to kind of maintain what we have built instead of continuing to skyrocket and then eventually fall off a cliff, right? And everything just kind of go kaboom, and all of a sudden, we just are left with nothing again, like 2005 and 6, 7, and 8, and then we've got to rebuild for a decade, okay? So that ultimately is what they're trying to avoid, and we'll see. As I talk a lot about on my YouTube channel, there are so many different variables that we've got to look at, so many different things to look at as it pertains to the housing market, which is why I'm going to continue to make more videos just like this one right here. So if you haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you would take just a quick moment and just smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. It would mean the world to me. And I'm going to continue to bring you brand new, fresh updates about the housing market, everything real estate related over the next several months and years, hopefully, okay? And anytime I see something new, like a CNN article or a Housing Wire article, or whatever the case is, I'm going to make sure to make a video on it. So I'm going to summarize it and make your life easy. So all you have to do is watch a video instead of reading 1,000 different articles. I would appreciate it if you would comment down below if you have any thoughts, any opinions on the housing market. Again, I've made other videos on it, but a lot of it is submarket by submarket and not necessarily the entire nation as a whole. Again, you've got a lot of people leaving California. A lot of people are leaving New York, and so depending on where you live, the housing market is already completely cooled off and maybe even trending down a little bit. But again, in other areas like Arizona and Idaho and places like that, we are literally skyrocketing. I would love to hear your thoughts. Definitely drop in the comment section below what your thoughts are. I'd love to interact with you there. Otherwise, until then, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.